I'm Ritu.
And I'm Sarah.
And together we are
Everyday Intellectuals. Today, we will be discussing Albert Camus' The Plague. Now, we picked this book for obvious reasons, and we will give a summary of all 5 parts of the novel. But first, let's meet some of our main characters.
First off, we have Dr. Bernard Roux. He's a physician during the plague, as well as a narrator. We have Raymond Rambert, who's a French reporter stuck in Oran trying to get back to his wife in Paris. Jean Thoreau is a rich vacationer who spends his time taking notes and assisting Dr. Roux.
Father Panelou is a popular Jesuit priest in Oran. Joseph Grand is a city employee who keeps tally of the deaths as well as works on a secret novel at night. Lastly, Cotard is a fugitive from the law who profits during the epidemic as a smuggler. The Plague is a fictional novel that takes place in the non-fictional city of Oran in Algeria. The story begins with a dead rat in the street, and then more dead rats. And then so many dead rats that the government can't ignore the problem anymore. So what do?
They decided to just sweep it under the rug. Well, technically the crematorium, but same basic concept. When there are finally no more dead rats, guess what? Dead humans. First a couple, then some more, then so many that...
You guessed it, the government can't ignore the problem anymore.
Who's surprised? Nobody. The whole city is placed under quarantine. Wonder what that feels like.
You'd think the residents would be scared about dying, and they are, but honestly, they're more busy simping over their loved ones who are trapped outside the city walls.
Yeah, they fill their loneliness by packing theaters and cafes, which of course is the most logical thing to do when there's a deadly disease going around.
Yeah, so clearly everyone handles the situation differently. On the one hand are people like Police Magistrate Oran, who carries on with his habits as if nothing is happening. On the other hand are people like our French journalist Rambert, who actually tries to break out of quarantine because he can't wait to run back into the arms of his beloved.
I don't get it. What does Rambert think he's going to do when he gets back to Paris?
Canoodle with his wife.
Oh yeah, because sex with the side of bubonic plague sounds so romantic.
Maybe it's their kink. On the other hand, Dr. Roux completely dedicates himself to his patients, even though he also has a wife that's stuck outside the city.
Yeah, isn't she in a hospital 100 miles away, deathly ill?
I really don't know why Rambert is so pressed. His wife is totally fine.
Yeah, get some perspective, man.
Seriously.
The social event of the season is a sermon delivered by Father Panelou, who basically victim blames the entire population, saying that the plague is God's punishment for their sins. Meanwhile, the government can't be trusted to do anything. So, rich vacationer Jean Thoreau sets up a sanitation squad to help the doctors during this time.
Most of the characters join in on the sanitary squad, except for Cotard, who is living his best life now that the cops are too busy to arrest his criminal ass. He sets up a profitable smuggling business and just basically enjoys the fact that the whole town is feeling as scared and lonely as he usually does.
What a weirdo.
I mean, misery does love company. Basically, everything is shit now.
As thousands of people are dying, the cemeteries start getting filled up. So they start digging mass graves. And then that gets filled up as well. So they have no choice but to start cremating the bodies. By now, all the main characters are properly friends, which makes no sense because how does Dr. Roux have all this time and energy to socialize when he's one of the few doctors in the middle of a damn plague?
Yeah, that's actually really unrealistic. Well, the good news is that they're pretty sure they found a cure, and they tested out on a young boy. The bad news is that the cure doesn't work, and he ends up dying a slow, painful death. This leaves a lasting impression on everyone, but especially Father Panelou, who is moved to give another sermon. This time, it's about the all-or-nothing nature of faith.
Basically, he says that you must accept everything of God, including the suffering of the innocent, or you must denounce everything of God. Now this leads him to his most mind-blowing conclusion that a God-fearing priest can't call upon a doctor. Then he gets sick. And he dies. Wonder who could have saved him then?
Around the same time, Joseph Grand gets sick with the plague. It seems that all hope is lost, but somehow he miraculously survives. This signals that the plague is finally starting to slow down. Just before the quarantine ends, both Othon and Tarot die of plague, which is important because the book wasn't bleak enough already.
Now that the plague is no longer a main concern, Cotard starts getting paranoid about getting arrested. So he loses his shit and gets arrested.
Once the quarantine is finally lifted, all the survivors are reunited with their loved ones, including Rambert and his wife, but not including Rue, whose wife sadly dies shortly beforehand.
Everyone celebrates their return back to normalcy, except for Dr. Rue, who's plagued with the knowledge that the disease could return from hiding at any given moment.
Okay, read 2. Final thoughts about the plague. What do you think?
Meh, whatever. I mean, I was really indifferent about this book. I get why we chose it. We're in the middle of a global pandemic. This is the plague.
Right. I liked it, but also I was just really excited to read Camus. And I want to talk a little bit about his writing style, because even though we were reading the translated version, it was still so well written.
Yeah, it was very concise, and he's very impactful with his words. I mean, when we were taking notes, I remember highlighting the entire book.
Yeah, there's absolutely no fluff.
One thing I do want to talk about is the content.
Right.
So,
Important.
it's very important. One thing I really like is we read this book during the time of lockdown. I mean, we were just quarantined. And in the first couple parts, you see the citizens of Oran also in quarantine.
Right.
So you see this idea of human behavior, especially when there's like a loss of freedom. Now, your entire day-to-day habits, it's completely turned upside down. You have to like deal with this new normal.
Right.
And I found that to be very relatable.
And that's relatable in any type of crisis, not necessarily just a pandemic or an epidemic. And one of my favorite things about Camus' observations is how people deal with the idea of abstract ideas, basically. When there's something that's so big in scope, you can't totally understand it. Like the doctor in the beginning of the book is trying to picture how many people might die, and he like actually can't wrap his mind around it.
I mean, that's kind of like coronavirus. I feel like people, I mean, the numbers are increasing, the number of deaths are increasing, and people are still not wearing masks. I mean, you see college students still hosting parties and people not taking this seriously. And I feel like the people who don't really believe in coronavirus only take it seriously when someone passes away that they know of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the idea that unless it's personal, you don't really like
Right. It has
react.
to become like tangible and no longer abstract.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so we talked about things that we kind of found relatable.
Yeah.
One thing I got really irritated by is the main character, Dr. Rue. First of all, he's a doctor. His wife's 100 miles away, who's not in quarantine. She's sick, she's dying. He never has an emotional breakdown. I mean, this man is saying thousands of people dying.
He comes close.
Kids. There's a child who's literally like tortured by like this new medication, and he literally has no emotional breakdown.
No, but he does get really upset and he snaps at someone.
He snaps, he gets angry and then apologizes 2 minutes later. This is not an emotional breakdown. I do not think this is like realistic. And on top of that, besides not having a moral breakdown, he still like is totally fine with one of the like his friends trying to escape quarantine. Like this would never happen in the real world.
Granted, a doctor probably wouldn't be okay with exposing the whole world to bubonic plague, but the really important thing when reading this book is to realize that Camus was a philosopher, and at its core, this is a philosophy book. So you can't really separate the philosophy from the story.
I struggle with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to look at
she
it
noticed.
in a really practical way, you know, that's going to be a bit of a conflict. So I personally really recommend this book to anyone who's interested in philosophy to any degree. If you're interested in like human behavior and morality, anything like that, I think it's great.
I mean, if you're not really interested in that and you like drama, plot twists, and you know things like that, probably wouldn't recommend it.
So let us know what you think. Have you read the book? Have you not read the book? Do you like it? Do you hate it? And what do you think about our video?
Yes, comment your thoughts below.
Absolutely. See you later.
Bye.